And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. Number 400, everyone. Thanks so much again for being a part of what we do for so many years now. Truly cannot thank you enough. Got a great show lined up for you today. Two great subjects to talk about. Coming up later on, the guys from the Super BS Gamescast and I are going to be discussing the move by Assassin's Creed to February by Ubisoft and the bigger picture there, why that may have happened. We'll go into that on the eve of the Tokyo Game Show. So we'll talk about that on the back half. But for now, it is the most discussed thing right now, and I guess trending in the world of professional wrestling, and that is the recent droppage by Netflix of the 6-episode docuseries entitled Mr. McMahon, after Vince McMahon of the WWE, who is not having the best of times right now. I'll just say that, and if you read the allegations, it's because of his own doing. But again, those are just allegations, and we'll see if they do get formalized onto a platform on a trial, whether it's federal trial, whether it's a lawsuit trial, or both. We'll see what happens. But while the case is still pending, Netflix dropped a Mr. McMahon docuseries, and here today to discuss his thoughts on the series, what he would like to see out of it when he checks it out. And I have a full review already because I've seen all the episodes. I have my thoughts in writing at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. But here today to discuss that very thing, and also my review as well, is the great one, TJ Johnson. And TJ, in the middle of the night, I truly appreciate it. I think only you and I are the most, how should I say, strangest people in the United States to be talking about Mr. McMahon at such a time in the morning, my friend.
Well, Joe, I couldn't think of a better way to start my birthday than having a conversation with you
Well,
about
happy
Vincent
birthday,
Kennedy
my friend.
McMahon. Thank you, sir.
I
Thank you.
know
I
it was
couldn't.
coming. You warned us all about it, but I forgot what day it was. So
Yes,
happy
sir.
birthday, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't think of a better way than to start about talking about Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
this guy, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing it, I'm sure you and I will discuss it. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing it quite yet, but what I understand is that he hasn't been painted in a particularly pleasant light with this docu-series. Apparently, he was under the impression that it would be a bit more of a fluff piece, and Netflix was like, nah, nah, not at all. But it does not, and without even seeing it yet, I can assure you, if you've been paying attention to where he's been in recent headlines with some of the recent allegations that have been coming against him to the point where he had to step down as chairman of the board or of the WWE or whatever you want to call it, it totally makes sense. And I think and I know you got a lot of thoughts on it. I think what happens, especially in the world of professional wrestling, is that it's so imperative that the crowd feels like this character that you're portraying is a real person, and it feels like it's really just an extension of who you are. And I think what we're being shown, or what I'm getting that we're being shown with this docu series, is that it was really hard to separate Vincent Kennedy McMahon from Mr. McMahon, the character, in WWE. He was as ruthless and diabolical, maybe even more so in real life than he actually was on television. And I think that in and of itself is a much, much scarier realization. So
I will say first off that the majority of the interviews, including with McMahon himself, were taped before the first time he had to leave the WWE due to the allegations, and which we didn't know at the time. He left because of an undisclosed settlement that he made to an individual, which we found out, was a former WWE employee. Janelle, I don't know if it was Janelle Grant or the Reader Chatterton, or anyone, one of the number of
yeah,
uh, things that came
Pick
to
one,
light.
right?
Yeah, pick one. I do know that it did come to light as far as how much has been paid out. As far as settlements for his previous, harassment and just basically terrible doings in the past. I know that again, one in particular, and I believe it was related to Janelle Grant, was the first reason why he left. And then once he came back, was again the other reason. Now that those allegations came to light in even more public fashion, he stepped down again. This time for good from the company that he founded, that he sold into the TKO umbrella, and so on. I do want to make mention again that most of the interviews in this series were taped beforehand. I also want to mention that this was in the making for years and years before WWE and Netflix came together on a potentially a 5, 10, or 20-year deal, depending on how long Netflix wants to keep WWE Raw on air once it starts in January. So I wanted to make sure some clarification
Yeah.
on that as well. But TJ, I'm going to give the first props on this series to Netflix for however way you want to portray it. Again, is there some things wrong with it? Yeah. There's some things left out of it. Yeah. But for the most part, if you are not familiar with the modern timeline of the ups and downs of the WWE, I think this is a good place to start. And I'll leave it that part into it.
Okay.
I do want to say to anyone out there, that bashes Netflix and whatnot, and I've been critical of that at times, but I've also praised them at times. And how can you argue with 250 million plus subscribers as far as success is concerned? They could have easily canceled this once they signed on the dotted line to the WWE, because the WWE is not thrilled, even with the departure of Vince McMahon, that this series has come to light on their network. They could have easily just swept it under the rug, or they could have just said, you know what, sell this to Hulu, sell this to Peacock, sell this to HBO Max or somewhere else. But yet they chose to do it knowing that they're going to be the future partner of the WWE in January. So I think that takes a little bit of, how should I say, the Vince McMahon vernacular? Grapefruits in order to go ahead and do just.
I think that yes, I think it takes a particular set of stones to do something like that to a degree, right? Let's be, pretty clear. It hasn't been a secret, the trials and the tribulations that Vincent McMahon and the WWE have gone through in recent years. It's also hasn't been a secret of some of the triumphs that they've experienced recently since the regime change, so to speak. With that all being said, I think the best thing that the WWE has going for them is a particular level of transparency and a particular level of, look, this has obviously happened. They're not shying away from it. They may not comment about it, but they don't deny it. They don't deny that these are things going on. They don't deny that these are the things that people are talking about. And I think that in keeping that same spirit with this docu-series, that it would have been completely a reverse of everything that they're holding so true and near and dear right now, to try to bury or to try to coerce Netflix into not letting it happen or not making it happen. Listen, it's out there. The information is out there. Rather we like it, or rather the WWE likes it or not, the information is readily available. We're just now seeing it in docu-series form. I don't see it as being a good play to have this thing buried anyways, especially as you mentioned, it's been in the works for years. It's not
Mhm.
like this is something that just came out over the recent last 6 to 12 months. This has been being worked on for 3, 4, 5 years at this point. So there was already a understanding of this project and what Netflix wanted to bring and how Netflix wanted to present it, even if it wasn't an understanding as far as Vince McMahon is concerned. Netflix knew what they wanted to do, and I think that it would have been very um, I don't know if there's a good word for it other than crappy. If the WWE, maybe shady might be it, or underhanded. If the WWE tried to use some muscle, especially with this new deal that's coming through, to say, hey, let's not put that out there. I actually give them a lot of props for sticking with it and saying, you know what, it happened. It's a part of our history, and I think that if more people took that same mentality and instead of trying to just act like things didn't happen or bury them under the rug, so to speak, that they would just acknowledge it, allow it to be part of their history, and it doesn't have to define who they are today. You know, who I was 20 years ago is not the same man I am today. And who the WWE or the WWF, depending on when you jumped on to the show, was back then is not who they are now. But it would be asinine and irresponsible of them to not acknowledge that history and to not give credence to the things that happened in the past, especially because it helped shape who they are today.
Once again, it is TJ Johnson along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching this. Truly appreciate it. We're talking Mr. McMahon, the docuseries, which just dropped on Netflix. Executive produced by Bill Simmons of The Ringer and also directed by one of the people behind Tiger King. That successful docu-series on Netflix back in 2020. Chris Smith, so wanted to give them a shout out. But I will say again, if first you are uninitiated to the WWE, or if you're not as familiar, or you just want to go ahead and put the pieces of the puzzle together of the WWE timeline in a broad but fair enough as far as timeline from 1980 to I want to say 2010 at the ruthless aggression era. They don't really delve too much into the modern today's product like outside of just lauding the fact that it's doing so well as of the time of the docu series, which it's fine. I give it that. So I ask you, my friend, again, you've yet to see it. I will share my full thoughts on it here in a sec, but when you were looking at the WWE as a whole, seeing
Mhm.
how far they've come, they are now $1 billion company, coming from the bars and the smoky arenas from the past. That unfortunately, that's where I originated my love for professional wrestling to where it is now in modern arenas to 8 to 10 to 12, 15,000 people seen by millions each and every week. How far has it come for you as far as the WWE is concerned?
Ooh, okay, it's a good question. I think that for me, growing up as a lifelong WWE fan, from back in the old school Hulkamania, uh, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior days, it's grown tremendously in many different ways. The athletes are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. Um, they can do more. They can lift more. It's an almost supernatural type thing. And I think for me, having grown up watching that product and understanding at first how they were very, very protective over, pro wrestling, is it real? Is it fake? Is it scripted? Is it not scripted? Are these people really going through it? Like they were very, very protective of that and seeing how that's kind of evolved and changed as time has progressed and time has moved on into being much more of a transparency as far as what they're going through, what they feel, how they're coming to e- embody these characters, how these characters are really coming to embody them. It's been fun. It's not without its ups and downs. Obviously, we're looking at the PG era, post ruthless aggression, but prior to where we are currently, which I don't know exactly what we're calling this now, but it's not been without its growing pains, but I think anything that's going to have the longevity that they've had, I mean, there's very, very little out there in the world of entertainment that's had the longevity of the WWE. The closest thing I could think to it would be, you know, like The Simpsons, having been around for, I think they're around 32 seasons now. It's insane. But I think that might be one of the only other things that have been around as long as the WWE, maybe even a little bit longer than WWE. So my point in with saying that is that it's natural for it to go through a natural series of ebbs and flows and some highs and some lows and trying to find itself with the newer generation and newer audience and trying to endear itself to a new public. um, it's been an interesting ride and to kind of see where they are now, to see this kind of a bit of a renaissance, if you will, for professional wrestling and the world of professional wrestling. It's been fun, and it's being even more fun now that it's taking a much more um, I don't want to say cinematic approach, but it's definitely a much more cinematic feel. If you look at the most recent one of the most recent segments between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, it was very much more of a Wild West kind of standoff where they kind of meet in the middle and have a heart to heart about if they really like each other, if they can trust each other, or da da da. It just has a different feel to it. So I'm enjoying it. I'm interested in seeing how they continue to progress, and especially in January once this deal is in full effect and they're full on Netflix. While I expect them to push the envelope, as you and I, kind of talked about, how much they push the envelope is going to be yet to be seen. But it's going to be a very, very interesting time. I'm excited to be a fan of wrestling. Wrestling's still cool.
Once again, it is TJ Johnson along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. We're talking Mr. McMahon, the docuseries now available on Netflix. Want to just say, for me, again, watching this as someone who has followed both the in-ring and out-of-the-ring exploits of professional wrestling for decades now, ever since I wanted to get a better idea. I mean, I realized early on, even in the 80s, exactly how it was scripted. I mean, you just put the common sense together. No man or woman can get punched in the face 300 days a year and work 300 days a year. It just
Mhm.
absolutely just defies all logic. And once you take that out of the realm, you realize, oh, it must be coordinated entertainment, is the way I like to phrase it. But be that as it may, I figured out what it was early on. And if that's the case, I wanted to know more. So I remember reading The National at that point in time, which was a daily sports newspaper, the only one of its kind in the United States at that point in time. And the guy who was on there once a week was Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, who was able to give readers a bigger insight into what was going on behind the scenes. And all these years later, following through him, and he, for me, is the one of the highlights of this docu series because of the
Mhm.
clarity he brings. That they were fortunate enough to get people who, yes, while they did get many wrestlers and many wrestling personalities and the McMahons involved in this docu-series to say their piece, you always have like a grain of salt ready to throw over your shoulder, or like a wandering eye, like, really? Okay. So it was nice to see him. I know he's not been going through the best of uh, credibility as of late in this modern world, but he does come off extremely well, along with the authors and also other reporters that are reporting in this that are brought in from time to time. The show itself, again, when it stays on what Vince McMahon wants you to know or wants to tell you, it is what interesting. Even though, again, you really can't take 100% to task exactly everything that he's saying, it's still fascinating nonetheless what his words are, whether you disagree or you agree, because there are some very disagreeable statements that he makes, very concerning statements that he makes, especially eye-opening statements. If you're Janelle Grant's lawyer, I'll just leave it at that, that are made during this. It's it's something that it does keep at attention, but there are points in the series where it does become reliant on other individuals because they only had a limited number of interviews with McMahon before he decided he didn't want to participate anymore. They did have other individuals participate, wrestling personalities, and I think that's where it kind of got weaker for me personally, because of the fact that there was just when you're dealing with so many wrestling personalities, you start to you figure out what what are they saying? Are they saying the truth? Are they saying not the truth? Are they telling you things that you want to believe? Are they telling you things that they believe? Are they trying to work us? Are they trying to not? That whole imprint is when there is in there for me when they're speaking. I often felt like I was sitting in on one of their podcasts, which because many of the individuals in this do have their own podcasts on the side, interesting enough. So I'll say this, and again, without spoiling it or doing anything, but for you, TJ, who has followed the WWE, a lot of this will come to you unsurprising, but it is an extremely slick and well edited docuseries that keeps it flowing rather well.
Oh, I think with the amount of information that we now have, right? And I was listening to you earlier when you were mentioning that you put it together early that it was all fake. Oh, when I started watching WWE, I was a but the wee lad, Gerald, and I didn't know. I didn't I didn't know it was fake. I'm the same guy that was running every time Papa
Now they wouldn't
Shango
want you
came
to
up
say it
on
was
screen.
fake, but uh, coerced, coordinated, scripted. I don't know, however you
Okay,
listen. So
tomato, tomato. I was the
yes,
kid that did not know that. So here I am thinking these guys are incredible to take all this punishment and come back next week on WWF Superstars and come back on Raw when Raw was debuting. And I was the one that was just impressed. I loved it. So it was a while before.
yeah, and I could tell it was for a lot of people. It was the same way. It was the same way, TJ. Absolutely, and
But my point is with the amount of information that's out there currently, and I'm just talking about in the world now, with the way that we consume media, the way that we consume news, the way that we consume um everything. It's natural for a lot of these people to, and when I say people, I'm referring to the professional wrestlers and the people that are on the inside of the business, to have thoughts and opinions, right? And to be in a free enough place where they have their own platforms where they can talk about things on a much more consistent basis, where we can consume the things that they're saying on a much more consistent basis. It changes the landscape for the way we view the WWE or the performers or the people that are behind the scenes entirely. Right. So now we have insider information. We have insider information on the Montreal screw job and how that happened, and how the wrestlers felt about it, how Shawn Michaels felt about doing it, how Bret Hart felt when he had it done to him. We have insider information on when Triple H broke character along with Scott Hall and did the whole Wolfpack thing at in Madison Square Garden. We have insider information on a lot of that stuff because as these performers have now aged out or are no longer part of the WWE, or nor under contract by the WWE, so they don't have to abide by any NDAs or non-disclosure agreements or whatever the case may be. They can speak freely on some of these things, and it helps paint a different picture for us. So in the spirit of embracing that change, and in the spirit of embracing um, that shift, that paradigm shift, so to speak, the WWE is, and this docuseries, which I'm looking forward to watching the more you and I speak on it. They're smart to lean into that and to allow other people to jump on, especially knowing that at some point Vince was gonna want to back down from this. At some point, once he came to the understanding that it's not a fluff piece, once he came to the understanding that this is not designed to paint him in a bigger picture, this is not designed to paint him in a picture that he wants it to, and his rose tinted glasses or his rose tinted version of himself. That we were getting the raw, dog, dirty, nasty, true, Vincent Kennedy and McMahon docu series that was going to explore the good, the bad, and the ugly. And people love to explore the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's no secret.
I
It,
will.
it, it was
Oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead,
my friend.
go ahead. You're good.
No, I was going to say this where this really, really gets to be good for all fans, both experienced and not experienced, or people just casually watching, is the fact that again, very slickly edited, presented, but the archival footage, the raw footage shown, the behind the scenes, the classic matches, the classic events, stuff that I know you can't see on YouTube or even possibly in some cases the WWE network. That is really where this shines the most.
Well, I tell you what, Joe, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't looking forward to watching it. I don't know how much time I'll get today. Maybe I'll get some time tomorrow, but I absolutely will
You
be checking out
celebrate your
this.
birthday first, my friend.
Yeah, man. Well, you know,
Mr. McMahon will always be waiting for you.
certainly hope not.
But my friend, I'm telling you what, it's been great to talk to you, and I do want to hear your thoughts in detail about it, what your thoughts are on it. But yes, I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it. But I was always hoping for something more. When
Mhm.
we for me again, I knew virtually everything that was being presented on the screen, but I was given the inference that man, this could be really something that's going to break open something wide that the WWE may not want you to see, or some really salacious details on Vince McMahon's past or life that hadn't been published or presented before, and it really didn't go there.
Mhm.
It's like some things that were new, as far as the controversial things, as far as the deaths, the trials, everything is there is presented, all the ugly warts, all the black eyes, all the happenings, but also the highlights as well. The resurgence of the Attitude Era, the ruthless aggression that is presented, the rise in WrestleMania, from WrestleMania, the domination of the territories. Those are presented as best they can. But again, there's so much to cover with the timeline of the WWE that it's hard to focus and stay on one particular time frame too long. And again, I think they did a very good job in presenting it. I just wish I'd gotten more. But TJ, it's just been great to have you on, my friend. Wishing you the happiest of birthdays as always.
Thank you.
But I can't wait for you to tell me your thoughts on Mr. McMahon when you see it on Netflix.
It's gonna be a time to be had, I'm sure. I'm sure. But Joe, thanks a lot for having me. Thanks for even having me on my birthday. You know, there's so many ways I could be bringing to my birthday, and here I am with you on the
Yeah,
pop culture
I don't know if
cosmos.
that's the best way to do it, my friend. But
There's worse.
again,
How about
I
that?
don't I don't think your wife would probably,
There's worse. How about that?
okay, all right,
Uh,
all right. Well, it comes from a person who does have a tremendous amount of respect and friendship for you, my friend. So I am truly thankful that you took the time out of your awesome birthday. Wishing you safe and happiest of birthdays with your family today. But it is, of course, the Mr. McMahon docuseries on Netflix. It is something that I think that if you are a fan of pro wrestling, if you are a fan of WWE, or if you're just preparing yourself for Monday Night Raw, it's a good way to go ahead and initiate yourself on the ups and downs that the WWE has experienced. It doesn't tell everything, and nor can it in a 6 episode format, but what you got, it's decent. It's decent. And I've got a full written review of it at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. If you want to see my score, you want to go ahead and give it a shout out. I'll give it a shout out there. Again, 7 out of 10 is what I put on it. But you want to see in more detail my thoughts, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. So, my friend, any last thoughts before we head on out?
you know what? I'm just grateful to be here, Gerald.
Are you sure on your birthday?
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you, there are worse ways I can start the day off, man. This is what's
Okay.
up.
All
And,
right.
and,
Well,
and we're talking about professional wrestling. I mean, how
all
cool is
right.
that?
All right. Well, under a minute left. Did your wife at least get you a PlayStation 5 Pro 30th anniversary edition?
No, not sure. Did not happen.
Okay. Well, tell her it's $5,000 on eBay right now. She wants
Oh,
to.
it doesn't even surprise me. That's ugh, ugh.
And they're being sold at that price.
Uh,
3,000 is usually we'll get it, but five is I wouldn't be
I'm so
surprised.
over Sony. I'm so over Sony.
I'll leave it at that. But once
Yes,
again,
sir.
it is the great one. I had to just say that. I'm sorry. It is, of course, TJ Johnson. TJ, always great to have you here on your birthday. Wishing you a tremendous one, and always right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.